Hello Geeks and Gamers, Matt Lemke here with Through Gamer Goggles, gamer-goggles.com. This is a preview on the game 1919, The Noble Experiment by Black Monk Games. It's a card game for 2 to 4 players. It takes about 45 minutes to play. The goal of the game is to gather as many prestige points as possible, and you do this by buying different ingredients, purchasing different ingredients, and distilling different types of spirits. There are a few different things in the game that make it interesting that create certain twists. For example, there is a mayor that can either be a law-abiding citizen or political official or a bribed political official. So, depending on how you want to play the game, there's room for intrigue and backstabbing. A lot of it has to do with strategic planning and resource management. And we'll, as we play through the game, we'll cover all those things in detail. So, let's get right to it. Hello Geeks and Gamers, Matt Lemke here with Through Gamer Goggles, gamer-goggles.com, and today this is the last portion of our preview for the new game 1919, The Noble Experiment from Black Monk. As you can see, the board is set up. We're going to make one modification to this board. A regular game requires that you use 6 of each locale, but since we are doing a demo version, we're going to remove half of them to speed up the gameplay. This is just a demo to give you a point. I'm hoping that this speeds it up enough that this is 15 to 20 minutes long. Tops. So, first thing you do is after setting up the board, is you move to giving each player their hand. But even before that, I'm going to make a note. There's 3 phases in 1919. And the first phase is the preparation phase, which effectively you've already done and prepared everything because you've set up the board. So you skip that phase in the game. The second phase is hiring workers. You also skip that phase the first turn of the game because of the way the hands are dealt. Now, with that being said, we're going to take these cards off here and these cards here, and we're going to grab another board to put on here so I can zoom in. And I'm going to show you sample hands. First player is the person who most recently watched a mob film. He gets 3 Mike Mellon cards and the mayor with the good side up. As I mentioned before, all the cards are 2-sided. This is the corrupt version. This is the good version of the mayor. And then he gets 5 ingredients cards. And he gets, wow, not the world's greatest hand for him, but it is decent enough that he'll have some really good first turn options. He has 4 barley and a water. Now the hands are going to be off screen. Now the second player, which in this case is the last player, the second player would normally get 4 worker cards and 5 ingredients cards. But since it's a 2-player game, the last player gets an additional card for the ingredients. Let's see what he has. Or what I have, since I'm the only one playing the game. Well, he's got a pretty good hand actually. He's got 2 water, a rye, and 3 maize. Both these guys have a pretty aggressive hand. So, now you enter the city phase, and during the city phase, you go back and forth until you've expended, effectively, all of your workers, or not all of your workers, until one player has expended all the workers on the table. Now, real quick, we're going to review the areas of the board. We have our reserved locales, our active locales, mixing plant, bottling plant, marketplace, black market, the distilleries, and the market. And over here you have your distilled liquors and your bottled liquors. And the ingredients pile here. So, the first player has has the 4 barley and a water. He can clearly make either the Irish whiskey or the Scotch. So here's what we're going to do. He's going to go ahead and he's going to take a look here at these different locales, and we'll pop it up on the board and zoom in. Actually, no. He's going to go ahead and take a look at the different locales and see what he might need. So, in order to try and score this round, Scotch, bourbon, or bourbon and bourbon. Bourbon is all over the place on this term. Bourbon, bourbon, blended whiskeys times 2. Any 2 whiskeys, a blended or a bourbon. So he's going to go ahead and he looks at what he can do, and he can buy the Scotch or the Irish whiskey. It doesn't really matter. They both appear only once. He's going to go ahead and buy the Scotch because it's actually on 2 different cards, so it makes his play more versatile. So in order to purchase this, he's going to discard 1 worker, 2 barley, 1 water, and 1 cash to pay for the use of the building. The worker also helps pay for that use. And then this card gets flipped over because it's been activated. Anybody else who wants to make Scotch this turn has to pay an additional 1 from the original cost. Now the player will get some distilled Scotch, and that goes in their playing area in front of them, face up. All the workers are placed face up. Then that action is completed. It passes to the second player of the turn. And the second player has 4 workers, like we mentioned before. He has 3 maize, 2 water, and a rye. So, well, he looks at it. Bourbon's on every card. So he's going to go ahead and he's going to buy bourbon straight up. He's not going to waste any time. He's going to discard a worker. He's going to pay 1 with his extra maize. He's going to meet the 2 ingredient requirements for the maize and the water. This card is activated. He gets the bourbon, which in the finished copy of the game will be Canadian whiskey. And these cards go to the appropriate discard pile. Now I'm going to zoom out here for a second. I want to show you how I discard. I discard with these cards with the face up, just so I don't mix up the piles. There's no rule as to how you do it. You can even put them on the bottom because at the beginning of the preparation phase they're going to get shuffled anyway. Now it goes back to player 1's turn, who can do a few different things here. He can visit the marketplace. He does not have a financer, so it won't really help him. If you look at the marketplace, there's 1, 2, 3 barley, 2 rye, a water, and 1 maize. He can take, when you use the market, you can take all of the same type of ingredient or any 2. Also, when you use the marketplace, you discard a card, an ingredient card. Well, you don't discard. You give it an ingredient card to your opponent, who then has to discard 1 card that they have in their hand prior to receiving that ingredient card. So, he is going to actually use the mayor, who has a special ability. We'll zoom in for the mayor's special ability real quick. Player with the most bottled whiskey has to choose 1 and discard it. In this case, No players actually have discarded whiskey, so it's not going to be relevant to the situation. But when you play the mayor after the end of the activation, he becomes... Actually, he's going to use the black market. He becomes activated, and his ability triggers. We're using the building here, discarding the mayor. Well, you don't actually discard the mayor. He goes on top of the building. The building is now shut down. If anybody wants to use the black market, they have to pay an extra 2 to do so. And what he does, the black market allows him to take the top 3 cards from the ingredients pile, which is really pretty good for him. It's 2 water and a barley. Now, the player actually has still has 2 workers left, so there's a minimum of 2 actions left in this round. Now it goes to player 2. Player 2 only has left in his hand water and rye. He really can't do much of anything. He could bottle his 1 bottle, go for one for one, and bottle it, and then he can attempt to get prestige points in the next turn. And actually, you know, since we're playing a short game, we're going to go ahead and do that. He is going to go ahead, and we're going to use the bottling plant. In order to use the bottling plant, you have the different costs for different amounts of whiskey that you can bottle at a time. And when I say whiskey, I mean distilled whiskey. So he's going to spend the 1, and he's going to discard a worker because he's using a building. The building is now activated. It will flip over. Discard the appropriate cards. His bottle of bourbon becomes bottled bourbon. Had he have waited to use the mayor, he would have been forced to discard this bottle, but he didn't wait. The mayor is also like hot potato, which maybe we'll get to see that here in a short while. Now it is player 2's activation. Player 2 actually has the ability to do the same thing. He has the ability to activate and use it, bottle his scotch, but he's going to wait. He is going to shoot to maybe, well, he actually has the ability to make Irish whiskey. If that's what he wants to do. And we'll go ahead and we'll do that. He's going to go ahead and make Irish whiskey. He needs 4 cards to do it. The 4 cards he's going to use are the 2 ingredients cards, which are barley, to meet the ingredient requirement of 1 water. He's going to use the 2 for cash to meet the 1. He doesn't get any change back from this because when you use ingredients as cash, you don't get any change. And he has to discard a worker, so he's going to discard a Mike Mellon to it. This will become activated. He now has distilled Irish whiskey. Next action goes to player 2, who has 2 workers, 1 water ingredient, and bottled bourbon. So he's going to go ahead and press the game. He's going to press forward, and what he's going to do is he is going to purchase or deliver bottled bourbon to this locale for the prestige points. It's a level 1 locale. He needs a bottle of bourbon, 1 and a discarded worker, or 1 discarded driver worker, which is Mike Mellon. Mike Mellon's a great card. Bottle goes back to the distillery or the distilled pile. He then gets this locale, which we're going to zoom out just a hair so you can see them all. Notice that this is vacant. It will remain vacant until the preparation phase. Zoom back in so I can show you the prestige points. We're going to zoom way in actually. He sold bourbon or delivered bourbon to this bar, this locale, so he has 3 prestige points. It goes off to the side. It goes off to the side like this because sometimes, for example, this one is worth 6 points and this side's worth 4 points. You always put the side that you purchased to the high end and you stack them like this. so that way at the end of the game it's easy to add up. Play will then pass to player 1. Player 1 has no ingredients cards, but he has a Mike Mellon. So what he's going to do is he knows that the end of the turn's coming up, so what he wants to do is stock up. He has nothing to pass to his opponent to make his opponent discard anything, so he can't do that. He ends up with 3 barley. This gets replenished. The player 2 sees that this is a good opportunity to stock up on some ingredients from the market, which we're going to zoom out so you can see the market. Right about there. He's going to grab the 3 water. He has 1 water in his hand, that is the only ingredient. He must pass that to his opponent. His opponent will then discard 1 maize. 1 barley. And we replenish the market. He doesn't really have the ability to do anything with what he has. He can spend all of this to visit the bottling plant, discarding his worker, ending the turn, and start the turn with 2 bottles of whiskey. But if he does that, he will have no ingredients and no cash to hire any workers, and everybody will be at a 0. They'll all be free workers. So he's not going to do that. He's going to go ahead and spend his action and grab the 3 rye. He's going to discard or pass 1 of the barley to his opponent. His opponent only has water, must discard 1 of those. We replenish. With only having 3 ingredients cards in hand, he's going to follow suit. He's going to do the same thing. He's going to shoot to grab all the barley. He wants to keep the water, so he's going to pass the same barley that his opponent just passed him, and his opponent has to choose what to discard, and his opponent's going to discard 1 of the rye that was in his hand. Now, it is player 2's turn. Player 2 has a decent amount of ingredients. He's going to go ahead and grab the mayor. He's going to bribe him by paying 2. He's going to spend 1 to use the market and discard his driver, Mike Mellon. That purchases the mayor. The mayor will then go in his worker area or in front of the active player sideways like this until the end of the city phase. The mayor can't be activated twice in the same turn, and that's why they have him sideways. And then you take 3 cards from the ingredient pile and they go into your hand, and he ends up with these 3 ingredients. So he actually did well. He traded 3 cards for 3 cards and ended up with the mayor, which makes him first player next turn, which could be very crucial. So that ends the city phase. At the end of the city phase, the opponent who has the mayor and their side chooses whether the mayor is the good mayor or the bad mayor. This guy is going to choose the corrupt mayor. He can't be discarded. Then we go to the preparation phase. So we're going to zoom out for that. Oops. During the preparation phase, oops, there should have been 1 more here, sorry. It wouldn't have changed what they did because I just missed it. During the preparation phase, all building cards that have the dark border up get flipped over and reset. This is basically a resetting phase. If there's any local cards left, they get flipped over. These are your clock, effectively. These are your timer, your countdown timer in the game that ends it. And any empty spots get flipped here. When you get to a spot where there's 2 empty slots and you can't fill these slots, the game ends. Okay, so now you enter the hiring phase. Player 1. Player 1 is the mayor. Player 2 is over here. You grab your freshly shuffled oops, I mix them up again. I do this all the time. Your freshly shuffled workers. And player 1 draws 2 workers. Player 1 then chooses which workers he would like to hire. He's going to no-brain it, and he's going to hire this guy because he gives you an extra ability. He gives you an extra action. So he's going to pay 1. Then this worker card passes to player 2. He draws a card, or she, and he looks at the abilities and decides whether or not he wants to buy either of these. These are both pretty interesting cards. Has a moonshiner and a financer. Moonshiners lower the cost of working at the bottling plant, and wait, I have to look. And yeah, and the mixing plant. So he's pretty good. He also has a really good ability. So he is actually going to go ahead and pay the 2 for that worker. 2 on the blue, which is 1. Then player 1 draws a card. Wow, Alex is pretty good because he lets you produce water or whiskey without using water. He's not as good as the other 3-cost guy, but he is pretty good. So he's going to go ahead and he's going to get bought with these 2 cards. This worker passes to this one. Now, Floyd is a 0-costing worker who says a chosen opponent has to either discard a bottle of whiskey or pay 5. So he's going to go ahead and take him. He's a great defensive card. Passes over to player 1. Player 1 draws a card. He ends up with a financer who is Frank Stone. He's going to go ahead and pay the 2 for Frank Stone. He has 4 workers. He is effectively done hiring people. So he goes ahead and he draws a card, and he likes Joe Redneck. So he's going to take Joe Redneck. The other card will get discarded. He's going to pay the cost of 1. He's going to pay it with the he's going to pay it with the rye. And that ends the hiring phase. And what we're going to do is we're going to stay playing at about this level because this is where most of the action is. And we have all these different workers that do different things. Player 1 has 1 ingredient card now. He does not need water, and that's a constant effect. He doesn't need water to do anything. So he's going to go ahead and he's going to grab, see, he doesn't want to grab just the green because that's only really effective on a couple of cards and for making an American whiskey. But then again, if he doesn't need water, nope, he's going to go ahead and grab the green. He's going to grab the rye. Take all 3 of them. He will pass the barley to his opponent. His opponent has to then choose one card and discard it. He is going to go ahead, seeing that he just bought the rye, attempt to stifle him, and discard the barley. We will replenish the field. It is now player 2's turn. Player 2 has 3. He can effectively bottle both of his whiskeys, but knowing that his opponent has no. Doesn't matter. He didn't take that card. So he's going to go ahead and he's going to spend the 3. He's going to discard this guy to the bottling plant. Becomes activated. And these are now both bottled whiskeys. He has an Irish and a Scotch whiskey. So he now has the ability to sell 2 bottles here, or maybe next round he can take the Irish and the Scotch and Irish and blend it if he has 1, but he doesn't have any ingredients cards, so he can't do that yet, for 4 blended, and then he could jump here for the lead on the game. We'll see if we get that far. It is now player 2's turn. Player 2 has 3 rye, which really doesn't let him do much of anything. He does have, however, Frank Stone, who is a really good card. He doesn't have to discard a worker. He's going to go ahead and he's going to use the black market because Frank Stone has that ability of the financer, and he's going to take the top 3 ingredient cards and put them into his hand. He doesn't have to give anything to his opponent by using this ability, so he's got now 2 water, which doesn't really matter. She's got 2 water and 3 rye, excuse me, and 1 maize, which he can make American whiskey now. Turn passes to player 2, who is going to go ahead and use Tito de Nova, who selects an opponent and takes one of their workers in exchange, and he gives them this card face down as a Mike Mellon. So he's going to go ahead and he's going to grab Alex Pitt, who's the guy who lets you make whiskey without water. And that's his action for the turn. It is now player 1's turn, and player 1 still has the ability to make the whiskey if he so pleases. And that is exactly what he's going to do. He's going to go ahead and discard a worker. He's going to discard Sean Evans, and after performing an action with this worker, you're allowed to perform an additional action in the same turn. So he's going to go ahead and use Sean, discarding Sean. He's going to discard 1 rye for the cost, 1 maize for the red ingredient, 1 water for the blue ingredient, and 1 rye for the green ingredient. This will be flipped over. He ends up with distilled American whiskey. Then he is going to take advantage of Sean's ability and take his second action, which in this instance is going to be grabbing 3 barley. He has 2 ingredient cards in his hand. He's going to pass the green one, which is rye, to his opponent. His opponent had no cards in his hand, so he can't discard. We will then replenish this field. It is player 2's turn. Player 2 now has 1 ingredient card, which is enough to let him blend whiskey. He will... Oh, and because he has Joe Redneck lessens the cost of using the mixing plant or the bottling plant by 1. He will use Mike Mellon, discard, to activate the mixing plant. He's going to mix the Scotch in the Irish whiskey. To make 4 bottles of blended whiskey. That ends his activation for the turn. Turn will pass to player 1, who has three barley and a water. He no longer has the gentleman who lets him use water, so he's going to go with spending activate 1 cash, the 2 ingredient requirements to make Scotch or Irish. I haven't made up my mind yet which. I haven't looked. If you look up here, you got Scotch, Scotch, and Scotch. So he's definitely going to go with the Scotch. He's going to make Scotch. And he's going to discard a Mike Mellon to do that. Okay. Play passes to player 2, who is going to take 2 bottles of blended whiskey. He's going to spend 1 and discard his driver to meet the requirements for that card. And he will end up with 5 points. He is now winning this game. Play passes to player 2. He has Frank Stone in the mayor. So he's going to go ahead and grab 3 ingredient. He has no ingredients in his hand, so he has nothing to pass to his opponent. He will then replenish the field and let the turn pass to his opponent. His opponent has no ingredients in hand, so he doesn't really have any money to spend. So he is going to go ahead and he's going to grab the 2 water because they're more valuable. And then play will pass to player 2. Player 2 has 3 water in hand. So he is going to, he's effectively going to end this turn. He has 2 distilled liquors in his hand. He's going to use the mayor to go to the bottling plant, shut it down. He needs to spend 4 to make 2 bottles of whiskey. He will spend 4 using 2 water. Those become his 2 bottles of whiskey. His 2 waters get discarded. The mayor is his worker. The mayor's ability is every player pays you 1 cash, not ingredients cards. They actually pays cash. So if they haven't visited the marketplace and used the marketplace's ability of discarding cards or putting cards face down, they have no cash. If they cannot play, eliminate a worker. Alex Pitt is the worker that player 2 has in his hand or in his worker pool. and he's eliminated. So that ends the city phase. Now we go back to the preparation phase, and I'll zoom out for that. I already shuffled the worker cards. Hopefully I didn't mess them up and shuffle the wrong ones in. We'll flip over everything that has been activated. The mayor is not going to get to be able to be used this turn. Player 1 is still the player that put the mayor into play. This card gets removed from the game. Like I said, it's a clock. This one gets flipped over. This one comes here. This one comes here. And you can see how there is quite a race to be made now. Now we enter the hiring phase. He has a Frank Stone who is a really good. Who's really good. So he is going to go ahead and pay the 2 to keep him, which kind of puts him maybe at a disadvantage. But then he's going to draw 2 cards. He has, player 2 has no workers. So player 1 draws this guy, and he's going to go like this. He's going to take the 0 casting cost, or 0 casting cost. Can you tell I play Magic the Gathering? The 0 costing card. And player 2 will draw a card. Player 2 has a choice here. You can use the bottling plant as if it were face up. But see, he's only got these ingredients. But he's going to go ahead and pay for Sean Evans, because Sean Evans is really good, and this is late in the game. Sean Evans is the guy who allows you to take an extra action. He's not going to get any change for that. So, player 1 draws a card. Player 1 has no money, so he's going to take the guy that he doesn't want out there. And this guy lets you take extra ingredients cards, but he's going to have to play him as Mike Mellon because he can't pay for him. He doesn't really want either. He can't pay for him because he's only got the water. So he's going to go ahead and put this guy face down. He's going to have a Mike Mellon. Player 3 is going to draw a card. Definitely doesn't want Joe Redneck out there for the opponent, because Joe Redneck will allow him to bottle whiskey cheaper, and he doesn't want that right now. So he's going to take him, passes to the opponent. The opponent has the ability to buy a very good card. He's going to go ahead and pay for Mark Barrow. He's got 4 workers, so he's going to draw another card and pick one to play face down. It doesn't really matter. Mike Mellon. Currently, player 2 is in the lead. Player 1 is winning, is close on his tail. And player 1 knows that he has to do some stuff real quick. So he's going to go ahead and he's going to use Frank Stone's Financer ability. Zoom out a hair so we can see the board. He's going to use Frank Stone's Financer ability to visit the black market. Black market is now activated. Because he has the Financer ability, he doesn't have to discard a worker. He's going to draw the top 3 cards of the ingredients pot. Play will pass to player 2. Player 2 has no ingredients, so he really is just going to go ahead and he's going to grab some ingredients real quick. He's going to grab the 3 maize. I'm going to go ahead and replenish with all water. Going to make a little bit of a plan here, if possible. Let's see here. We have an American whiskey and a Scotch, and we have the 3. Oh wow! Hey, look at this. American. Nope, you can't do it. That's too bad. So if he makes an Irish whiskey this turn, which he can't, he doesn't have the ability to, or he can go ahead and deliver. Well, we're going to push this. Alright, we're going to push the envelope. He's going to go ahead and grab the 4 water, because it's really pretty good for him. He has to pass one of his barley, and the other opponent, the player, has to discard one of his maize. It is now, after replenishing, player 2's turn. Player 2 has no water, so he can't make any whiskeys. He is going to attempt to eliminate. Is that the right choice? No, he's going to use the financer ability to activate the marketplace, spend the 1, and get the top 3 ingredient cards, which is maize and 2 rye. His opponent gets to go, which is the first player, and he is going to make, what did I say I needed to make? An Irish whiskey. He has the ability to do so. It's going to cost him a little bit. He has the 2 barley ingredients and the water. He has to activate it, so he's going to have to overpay. Those are all discarded. And he has to choose a worker. He's going to go ahead and use Frank Stone, because after performing an action this turn, Frank gets put face down but not discarded. So he becomes a Mike Mellon in his worker pool. Pretty good. And then I said Irish whiskey, and he gets distilled Irish. Player 2 gets to go. He is going to go ahead and he's going to visit the marketplace again. No, he's not. What's he going to do? I guess he's going to... He's going to grab all the barley. He has 4 cards. He has to pass 1 card to his opponent. He just picked up all the barley, so he's going to go ahead and pass one of those, and his opponent has to discard a water, because those are the only 2 cards he has in his hand. Now, his hand is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards. He must discard a card. Having 4 barley, he's going to discard a barley. Play passes back to player 1. And he's going to go ahead and pay the 2 to bribe the mayor. Pay the 1 to activate the bottling plant. Discard a Mike Mellon to use the bottling plant, because you have to have a worker there working. And convert his Irish distilled liquor into a bottle of whiskey. Mayor goes over here again, so he's going to retain player 1. Player 2 is going to go for broke, and he's going to shoot for all the water, because he needs water to make whiskey. He has all these wonderful cards here. He's going to pass one of the rye to his opponent. His opponent has no cards in hand, so he's not going to discard anything. And that puts him up to like 10 cards in hand here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, he wants to make scotch next turn, so he's going to keep at least 1 water, 2, and then it doesn't really matter. So there, he's going to keep 2 water. There. He's going to discard 2 water from all that. Replenish. Player 2 still has 4 workers, and player 1 has 3 workers. It is now player 1's turn. Player 1 has 1 ingredient card. He has Irish and Scotch whiskey. He's going to use the mixing plant. Let's zoom in. Oh, my camera moved. Well, we'll fix that in a second. has Irish and Scotch whiskey. You need 2 of them to make 4 bottles of blended. These will be returned to their appropriate distilled piles, and he will get 4 bottles of blended whiskey after paying the costs. It is player 1's turn. Player 1 is going to visit the Scotch distillery. He's going to go ahead and use the water ingredient, the 2 barleys, and one barley to purchase the, oops, I used that last turn, to purchase the Scotch. He will then use his second ability, his ability of taking another action. He's going to hop on over here and see if he can make American whiskey, which is 1 water, 1 rye, 1 maize, and 1 to boot. Plus he has to discard a worker. He's going to go ahead and discard a worker, which is a Mike Mellon. Flip over the distillery, grab the American distilled liquor. Play passes to player 1, who has no ingredient cards, so he can pretty much only grab ingredients right now. He's going to grab the 3 rye, put them in his hand. He has no cards to give to the opponent, so there's no discard from the opponent. That's all 7. Play passes back to player 1. Player 1 is going to use, oh, that won't work. He has nothing to spend with. So he's going to do the same thing. He's going to grab 3 ingredients cards. He has no cards to discard or to pass to the opponent, so his opponent won't have to discard, and they're going to replenish the market. Player 2 has he's going to wait. He's not going to do that yet. Player 2 has 3 ingredient cards. He's going to go ahead and grab the 3 water. There's 3 water in the ingredients. How about we zoom out since I'm doing this here like this. Replace this. He will pass 1 of the rye, which the opponent can't discard. He's going to discard a barley. It is player 2's turn. Player 2 is going to use the Financier's ability and pay 1 to use the black market to draw 3 cards off the top of the ingredient pile, which worked out really well for him, I believe. Well, it worked out pretty well. Player 1 has the ability now to deliver to this high class, this high society locale, which we'll zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. He has 4 bottles of blended and 1 bottle of American. One driver and $1. So now he grabs this. He has 8 more prestige points, giving him a total of 11 for the game. The blended liquors go there. The American liquor goes there. He goes there. It goes there. That remains empty. Player 2 has his turn. Player 2 has a decent amount of ingredients cards. Player 2 is going to I don't know what player 2 is going to do. He has 5 cards. He can make a scotch. Well, he really does want to make, let's see, an American, a scotch. He wants to be able to win at the end of the next turn. So if he makes a whiskey now, any of them, he'll grab a bourbon. He'll distill a bourbon. And what he's going to do is he's going to use the blue. Oh, he can't make bourbon. Ha ha ha! He's going to make he's going to go ahead and grab an Irish. Or he's going to grab scotch. And this time the scotch is going to cost him 2. All of the regular ingredients. He must discard a worker card. He's going to go ahead and discard Frank Stone, or I'm sorry, Mark Barrow, and grab another distilled scotch. Each player still has 1 worker. Play passes to player 2, who has a whole bunch of resource cards. So what he's going to do is he is actually going to grab the red ingredient cards, which are the maize. He's going to pass the rye to his opponent, who has no cards in hand, so he doesn't have to discard. Replenish the marketplace. Player 2 gets to go, and he is going to end the city phase, by discarding Mike Mellon to visit the marketplace and paying 1. He gets the top 3 cards of the ingredients pile. Then we enter the preparation phase, which all these cards flip over. They all recover. That one flips over. That one is removed from the game. All empty slots get filled. And the race is on. We will do another hiring phase. As you can see, when it comes to hiring, this guy has the advantage. Player 1 over here draws 2 cards, 2 workers. He gets Lou Distiller and Warren Boyd. He's going to grab Warren for 1. Player 1 draws a card. Going to pay for her. She's a financier, so she's pretty good. He draws a card. He's paying for her. He has all 4, so it's going to be all player 2's. She actually discounts all actions by $1, and it's a constant effect. It's a really good card. And it doesn't matter, so I'm just going to go ahead and put these guys face down, and that is the start of the 3rd turn of the game, and should be the final turn. Okay, player 1 has 2 water and 2 rye, which is actually enough for him to make bourbon. So he's going to do that. He's going to go ahead and make Well, will bourbon help him any? Well, bourbon will help him. Bourbon will help him quite a bit. So now it's a race to end the game. So he's going to go ahead and use the water ingredient and the 2 maize. Her ability reduces this cost by 1, so he doesn't have to spend that. He then gets the bourbon, or will be Canadian whiskey in the future, distilled. Now, it is player 2's turn. Player 2 is first, what he's going to do is he's going to go ahead and he's going to activate this guy, who makes him swap a player. He becomes a Mike Mellon. And he's going to take Marilyn Bowl because she gives discounts on all actions. That ends his turn, or his action. It's now player 2's action. Player 2 has he still has the mayor, which at the end of the city phase I was supposed to choose. We're going to go ahead and go to the good mayor. I should have done that at the end of the city phase. And we're going to use the marketplace using the financer ability of Warren Boyd. So he gets the top 3 ingredient cards of the deck, which are maize, barley, and rye, which is pretty good. Player 2 then activates. Player 2 also has a financer, but he has no ingredient cards, so he can't do anything. So he has to grab from the market, or he has to use a special ability, which right now he doesn't really have any special abilities that are single use, except he can trade a bottle of whiskey with the opponent, but he doesn't. His opponent doesn't have any whiskey. So he's going to grab the 3 barley, because they're most used on the cards. We're going to replenish. Now, he's going to shoot to make a distill something, which he can only distill American. And he no longer has her, so he has to spend the 1 and he has to discard a worker. He's going to go ahead and actually activate the mayor. And he gets American. Play passes to the second player, who has some options. He has 3 barley. He can either grab from the market. He has a financer, so he can spend 1, which is actually what he's going to do. He's going to spend 1. He's going to use his financer ability from Lucy and take the top 3 cards off of the ingredients list, which may not seem like to help him since this is his hand, but you're going to see that that's actually really beneficial. Player 2 has 1 ingredient card in his hand, and he has 2 liquors that he can bottle. But in order to bottle them both, he needs 3. So he has a financer as his worker. So he's going to spend 1. Not getting anything back from it. Get the top 3 cards, which gives him a little bit of a variety. Play passes to the second player. Which he has 5, but he has Marilyn in play, so she discounts this by 1. He is going to spend $4 to make an infinite number of bottles of whiskey. He now has 3 bottles of whiskey. bottling plant gets flipped over. It is activated. Player 2 has a chance to activate. He has 3 ingredient cards for $1 a piece. He really wants to attempt to win this game. So he is going to use the bottling plant. But he has the ability of, he can use the bottling plant as if it were face up. So he's going to spend 3 to bottle both of his liquors. Discarding that card. His liquors are now both bottled. Player 1 has, or player 2 has Lucy, who is choose one player and trade a bottle of whiskey with them. So she is going to trade a bottle of blended whiskey for a bottle of bourbon, because the bourbon pretty much locks the game for him. Oops, that's the American, trading the bottle of bourbon, and he gets blended. So now player 2 has the option of going. He has 1 ingredient card. Player 1 is going to go ahead and use Floyd Matter and make him pay 5 or discard a bottle of whiskey. This guy's got 2 Scotch, an American, a bourbon, and a blended. He's going to discard the blended because it's the least valuable. It's still possible that he's going to win, but it is highly unlikely. Let's see here. He is going to shoot for the gold. He's got 5 points to player 1's 11 points. So he needs to get the Scotch and the American, which, in order to do that, he needs a driver and 1 plus a Scotch and an American. He effectively just won the game, and we'll get into that in a second. Player 2 gets to go. He has no ingredients cards, so he is going to grab the 3 barley. I'm sorry, the 3 maize. Replenish the field. Player 1 or player 2 still has 2 workers. It is player 2's turn. Player 2 has no ingredients cards either, so player 2 is going to jump on the bandwagon and grab all the water. And look at that, 3 water are replenished. He had no cards in hand, so there's nothing to pass to the opponent for the opponent to be forced to discard. Now, there's nothing on the table that he's going to really be able to do with the American. Or the blended whiskey. Well, I take that back. He needs Irish to make it work. So he needs to grab ingredients this turn, and he's going to grab the water. It's a scramble to try and win. He's going to have to pass a maize to his opponent. His opponent has to discard a water because that's all he has in his hand. Then we will replenish again. Player 2 has a bourbon and a Scotch, 2 water, and a maize. So what he's going to do is he's going to use the market. He's going to grab 3 barley. He's going to pass 1 maize. His opponent has to discard either a maize or a water. He's going to discard the maize. Because prior to discarding, or prior to being passed, this was his hand. He's going to go ahead and pass. No, he's going to discard. It doesn't matter. He's going to discard that. That's the better choice. Replenish the board. It is player one's turn. Player one is going to wow, if he does that, that ends the phase and ends the game. He is in a pickle. He loses. He's going to make 2 for the cost. The 2 maize ingredients and the water to grab distilled bourbon. He must discard his last worker to grab that bourbon. That ends the phase. We go to the preparation phase. The buildings are flipped over. This one is removed from the game. This one is flipped. Nothing can come forward. Wow, there's still a turn left. Holy cows. And this one comes down here like this. The mayor is still there. This player still is the active player, and we're going to go and hire workers. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. We're going to pass through that phase. Player one has plenty of stuff to control this game. Player two. Player one does not have plenty of stuff to control this game. Draws 2 cards. Well, he's going to go ahead and buy that guy, because that guy is stupid good. He's going to pass him. He gets to pick him or him. They're both a 3 cost. Just in case, he'll take him as a melon. He has no money left. Don't want him out there, so he's going to take him as melon. Don't have to discard ingredient cards, nor give them to your opponents. He's just going to take him as a melon. He's got no ingredient cards, so everybody else becomes melon. That ends the hiring phase. It's not going to affect the outcome too much. Let's see here. Oh, maybe things can happen. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We're going to play this turn out. He's going to go ahead and discard a worker to use the black market, drawing 3 ingredient cards. He ends up with 2 barley and a water, which is a good start for him. Player 2 has these 4 workers. He has bourbon and scotch, which if he takes the scotch, it'll put him at 15 points. Oh, no, wait, he's going to do this right now. Check it out. He's going to guarantee he wins the game. Any bourbon, scotch, Irish, or American whiskey, and a bourbon. Spend 2 and discard a worker, or use a driver card. Game 5. prestige points. Bam. Play passes back to the first player, who is going to go ahead and visit the bottling plant, discarding Stevens as his worker. Going to spend 1 for the cost of bottling the bourbon. He's immediately going to take his next action. Which will be to take the bourbon to there. He has a driver, he has a Mike Mellon card. Mike Mellon and the bourbon meets that requirement of 2. The bourbon goes over yonder. It is now player 2's turn. Player 2 is, he has enough to, there is no point in going any farther with the way the demo is set up, so we're going to score. There are no, at the start of the preparation phase, there's no cards to replenish any of the locales, so we're going to go and we're going to score. Player 1's prestige points, player 2's prestige points. We have three and 8 is 11, plus 2 is 13. 5 and 5 is 10, plus 8 is 18. Player 2 wins. Thanks for watching. I hope that this was helpful for you in understanding 1919, the Noble Experiment. If you have any questions, please let us know. I'll do my best to find out. I'll talk to Black Monk, do whatever it takes to get you the answers that you want to have. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.